Go for it.
Cool.
Cool. Hi, I'm Ashley. I was most recently senior marketing manager at a startup, a robotic automation startup in Boston called Soft Robotics. So I spent about 4 years there, built out the marketing function, really loved it, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Patrick, we know who you are, but tell us a bit more, man.
Ah, man, I don't like talking about myself, as you know. That's why I like to use aliases. Today, Levon, I think I'm going to go by Levon because we have another Patrick in the group. Or you can just call me PD. I'm the sales trainer at PandaDoc. My initials match the company I work at, which just drives me insane. I'm a mental health advocate. I think I'm funny, and I'm probably going to ruin the recording today. So I'm excited, guys.
Amazing. Amy, the Mason
Okay,
class.
well,
I love it.
then it's not moonshine, it's water. Yeah, so I'm Amy. I'm the territory account manager at Fortinet. I cover Mississippi and Alabama here, and I'm looking forward to a long Labor Day weekend where I do not much of anything. So it's going to be glorious, but as always, great to be here. I'm really excited to see Patrick, Joyce again. We kind of started this whole thing with you, Patrick, so it's nice to see you come in full circle, and you know how we feel about you. We love you, so it's good to be here with you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. I'm Francois. I kind of got roped into this early on with these cool cats. I sell Microsoft ERP and CRM solutions with Encore Business Solutions by day. By night, you know, I'm probably holding a hockey stick or doing a Justin Trudeau impersonation. And actually, when Patrick, Joyce and I first talked, he was posting pictures of like skating in Alaska. So totally crazy full circle convo. Anyway, Patrick, you got a new gig. You're busy. You're doing lots of outbound. Love to hear what you're doing and how we can help, man.
Oh man, hallelujah. Yeah, this has been really interesting. I don't know. I don't even really know where to start. Oh, before I forget though, the Patrick Downs at PandaDoc, like if I was you, man, I would be going full tilt at my IT department to get me PD at pd.com. I would say take some of that funding money you guys have, buy the domain pd.com and give me that email address and let me sideload it out of my Gmail, because that's how I want to send my sales emails. You know, I would just need that to happen. The other thing I wanted to ask is like, how big has this thing gotten? Like, am I talking to a lot of people right now?
We like to, I don't know, we won't inflate our egos, but I guess it's kind of gotten big. I mean, we're starting to talk about launching in Australia. We're talking about rolling out with Latin America. There's been some interest from India and Asia to do so I guess when all things are combined, the audience is slowly growing. But I don't know, we just like keeping it real. Like, we just love every Friday being able to do this.
We had an amazing guest from the UK last week, Patrick. It was Benjamin, the UK's most hated sales trainer.
I saw that.
Yeah,
and that. That's killer.
Justin Welsh is going to be on the UK version next week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you guys had Justin Michael on here recently too, right? Or a couple weeks ago or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't get rid
Yeah, we can't get him to leave. He just keeps showing up and making weird beeping noises.
Yeah. Yeah. So to get you guys caught up to speed as to what I'm up to, I joined Akata in May, the beginning of May. May 4th was my start date. And they used to be a part of White Pages. It was a division of White Pages. It was the B2B division called White Pages Pro. And the way that came about is you guys are familiar with the White Pages. I'm assuming it's, you know, the phone book with everybody's name and address info in there.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, 2003, the White Pages phone book is completely irrelevant since the internet. And they're sitting on a massive data set of phone name, address information, which is really useful in fraud detection in online transactions. So what they did was they invested in engineering to basically take that name, address, phone data set and bolster it with email and IP data. So they had to go and, source all of this data and then expand it out of North America and turned it into a global data set. And then, normalized all of that information and created what they call an identity graph, which links all of that information together. So the name, address, phone, email, and IP are all linked together so that, if I sign up with my email address and everything else is Francois' info, our API would be able to tell you that and say, this email address doesn't really go with that person over there. And it would give you a risk score. So the use cases are basically like new account sign up in some type of a financial service. Like if you're applying for a credit card, they're calling our API to say, like, is this information accurate? There's some more to it than that, but that's essentially what I sell. And then the other one is in transaction processing. So anybody that's processing payments online, we have basically like a slimmed down trim version of the transaction of the API that's called the transaction risk API. And in like a tenth of a second, it will give you a fairly accurate risk score on the transaction that's getting processed. So like our customers are like Square, Visa. We're talking to MasterCard. They're not signed yet, but we're talking to them. I just set up a deal at JP Morgan Chase. They're expanding into new markets globally, and the address information from country to country is really hard to acquire. Like basically what we do is like you'd have to go to between 3 and 5 vendors to get the same info that you can get all in one place with us. So like we actually flew to Brazil and like went to the post office and like purchased all of that information and like kept everything compliant so that you can source the information like and be confident that it's compliant, you're not breaking any laws, etc. So that's I think I'll stop there and see if that made any sense. It's 9 o'clock in the morning and I haven't had any coffee yet.
I think so.
It sounds pretty interesting. I'm curious, like, who are you typically selling to?
So the team that I joined was called the Global Strategic Account Team. And basically there's a list of 25 accounts that are the biggest accounts that we were going to go after, like AT&T, Google, Verizon, Square, PayPal, just the biggest companies in the world, essentially. And the nice part about this company is that since it was a part of White Pages, and some of the leadership in the org has basically been really well networked over the years. There's something called the Merchant Risk Council, which as soon as anybody started selling anything online, all of the major merchants like got together and said, how do we do this? Like, what are we going to do to protect ourselves? Like, what are the best practices? And our one of our VPs was the president of the Merchant Risk Council for 10 years, which means that we know everybody. So a lot of their deals have come through like showing up to events, networking, kind of just handshake deals that didn't really necessitate an outbound sales motion. But about a year ago, they broke off from White Pages, to be Akata, our own company. Akata is Sanskrit for identity, in case you were wondering. But that plus COVID, like they needed to build an outbound function. So they hired me basically because I got a reference there and I had a reputation of, some type of a sadist that enjoys prospecting, and kind of just set me loose on these top 25 accounts. They gave me a short list of 10 of them and then said, can you get us some meetings? And I've been able to do that. And it's been a lot of fun. I've leveled up a ton in the past, I don't know, couple of months. Yeah, 4 months. I've leveled up a ton. And then the other thing that happened that was a major change for me was I showed up and they're all extremely skilled salespeople. Like it's a very, very tight sales org, but they have no muscle for outbound prospecting. So I didn't have anybody to go to and say like, what should I do? Like how can I change my strategy? Like where can I go with this? So I approached Justin Michael and asked him like, can I pay you to coach me a little bit? And he was just setting up his Patreon, and I kind of helped him, conceptualize what I wanted to get out of it. And I had a learning and development budget, and I gave it to him and booked him out for the quarter. So I've been meeting with him weekly for like the past 5 weeks, I guess, and just kind of he's like looking over my shoulder and like going through my accounts and like helping me write some emails and gave me some new strategies and really changed up like a lot of the stuff that I was doing before. And that's essentially how I've been able to get so much traction.
Man, I kind of wish we had Justin on the call.
I bet if I pinged him right now, he would probably show up. Do you want to Zoom bomb us?
Yeah, have him Zoom bomb us.
I swear, I'm gonna actually just text him the link to the Zoom and say join this if you can.
He totally would.
You give him a chance for any exposure, he'll take it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
He's a robot.
Well, he's not a human being. He's a sentient AI, and his hologram is going to show up into this call.
I'm putting money on 75% chance he shows up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sending him a message too.
So Patrick, I'm curious, like what I'm hearing is like if I'm Google or if I'm a large company, like this sounds like a pretty interesting option. Right now, is the solution they have a bunch of different tools? And so is the pain right now, they're kind of going, nah, it works with 5 or 6 vendors. So is your like obstacle or objection, if you will, like the inconvenience? Because it's just going to be a big messy process.
Sometimes yes, yeah. Sometimes it's that. So you're absolutely right. The companies that I'm talking to, like I just set up a deal with Capital One. Capital One's been around for a while. Like these companies, it's not like they've never heard of fraud detection before. It's not like I'm introducing them to a new concept. They've all been doing this. It's highly evolved in most of the cases. At the mid-market level, or even at some of the like more, the younger enterprise companies, it might be more of like we have a strategy that you might have not have thought of yet. But when I'm talking to Google, it's like they want something very specific out of the interaction, and it's not like I'm going to tell them anything that they don't know about. So what actually gets me in the door is it's either vendor consolidation. I can reduce operational expenditures, right? Like it's just, you pay us 4 cents a transaction instead of paying 3 different vendors, because you have to go and get the IP and email data over here. And then you have to go to the credit bureaus to get the name, address, phone. And then you have to dedicate engineering resources to basically build the identity graph that we already have done for you. We have all the information, all the addresses on the globe already normalized meaning like, the format of the way that you write down an address in the Netherlands is different from how you do it in Brazil, which is different from how you do it in the United States. So to actually compile all that data is quite a bit of work, and we've already done it, and it's a low cost per transaction to access it.
So are you finding that, like you can get a hold of people, like who to get a hold of? It's just now getting the time on their calendars and making that, I don't want to say convincing argument, but like if you were to say like right now you're, I don't know, maybe top 3 prospects, like what's the biggest like headache right now? Like you keep falling down on their priority list, or like you said, they may already know some of this, and so it's getting into a real tactical like financial discussion and almost like having to get into the weeds of their like operational piece.
Well, yeah, what it really comes down to is the way that I'm having success is I'm pattern matching customers that we already have, and just bringing up the idea that we have all that information in one place from a single endpoint. And like it makes a lot of sense to the people I'm trying to talk to. Like, here's a good example, like new credit card applications, right? So JP Morgan Chase, the reason I got that deal set up is because I mentioned thin file card applicants. Thin file is like an industry term for basically like you don't have any credit history. It's not good, it's not bad, but if you don't have any credit history, that means that you go to the credit bureaus to run this person's credit and you get nothing back, which means that you can't verify that person's name and address. So JP Morgan Chase, they want to issue new credit cards. Like it's one of the ways that they make money. So they don't want to turn down the customer. If it's an 18-year-old kid that, you know, would be perfectly fine to issue a credit card to, you just can't verify their name and address. Like, it's not a good enough reason to not give them the credit card. But the problem is, fraudsters know that at this point. And in 2020, fraud it's not like a person, like an individual sitting in front of their computer trying to break into JP Morgan Chase. It's systematic, like people, it's organized crime essentially. Like there's a lot of resources poured into developing synthetic IDs. So finding people that have no credit history, using their information to apply to a credit card, getting the $5,000 credit card, spending it, and then never paying the bill. So then that's what they are trying to avoid, right? They want to be able to A, issue new cards to as many people as they can, and B, be able to tell if that person is a real person or not. So like the point that got me in is that I said, we help with American Express and Discover Card with thin file applicants verifying their info when the credit bureaus are lacking data. Like one sentence, and that got my email answered by the 5th largest bank in the world. The first 4 are China.
Is your typical is your typical sequence kind of like a email, call, email? What have you found been working?
Well, this is where the J Mike comes in, and he gave me some very serious stuff. I'm going to see if he responded to me here.
Because I know he's got all these different concepts of like, what does he call them? Does he call them spearing first?
Spears. So the spear concept is basically just a compacted email. You take like the typical, the prevailing wisdom that's out there is essentially like, personalize your email and have this really well-developed value proposition. And it kind of takes a while to write, and it's a little bit long. It doesn't have to be too long, but like the typical, email that you see out there on LinkedIn suggested, it's a strong concept. That's why it's so popular. But the problem is that the companies that I'm going after, they get between 200 and 500 emails that look exactly like that every day. So I'm trying to do the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
And I have like a 3-sentence maximum on my emails. I can show you guys some examples.
Hold on, let me make you a presenter.
Sure.
And Ashley, I'd love your take on
Ashley is a first-time caller. She's probably like, what am I doing here? These guys are crazy.
Yeah, when he starts showing you these emails, I'd love to hear like the marketing perspective on them. Because I think that's one thing with like that as a sales rep that I think sometimes we struggle with is the language distinction between sales and marketing. Like marketing is far more, I think, neutral, and whereas sales is more it's a little bit more forward in its ask. So I really want to work on how to blend those two worlds so that you're not overly salesy, but you're still, you know what I mean? Like you're still getting the point across without being like too pushy. But I'm really excited to see this because I know Justin's been talking about like these 3-sentence, like short email structures for a while.
It's crazy. It's basically like everything that you know about sales, forget it, and we're starting over. And I'm trying to write this as though it's a tweet. Like I'm on my cell phone and I'm texting my friend. Like that's the vibe that I'm going for. And I'm trying to avoid deference because that is the exact feel that they get from like every email that comes across their way. And then mine looks like something different. Mine looks like, hey, psst, look, hey, there's this treasure map. We can go both make money right over here. Do you want to do that? Is that cool? So to answer your question, Francois, about like, what does the sequence look like? I changed everything there too. So the first day it's like phone call, leave a voicemail, send an email, like all at the same time, like bing, bing, bing. Phone rings, the voicemail goes off, and then they get an email. So it's all me. They had to have noticed me. Then the next day, if none of that worked, the next day I reply to my own email right away, 24 hours later. Give them another phone call. I don't have to leave another voicemail. Once I leave the voicemail the first time, I don't have to do it again. So phone call, you run a triple on the first day, reply bump on day 2, reply bump it again on day 3. Like now it's way, way weird. Now there's not that many sequences that look like this. So this is different. It's different. And I'm replying to it the second time around with visuals. The first reply bump is like one word, like thoughts, like that's it. Thoughts ? Like every single meeting that I've booked here has come off of a reply bump. Like I haven't connected with anybody on the phone and booked a meeting. Nobody's ever answered my first email. It's all been like when it bumps to the top of their inbox, like 24 hours later, it's a different cadence than what they're used to. And it's super assertive.
I love that example you give of Twitter because, I mean, agree or disagree, like people have a short attention span and Twitter is working. And so I think it's the same with email, right? Like I always think of it as a war for attention, right? Like between all the channels you have and all the communication channels, like if you can get to it right away and make an impact, I remember some of the original kind of emails I'd see out there, and it was just like, everybody's tuning out. Like by the time you get halfway through, you're like, if this doesn't hit me, you're just like, you're getting rid of it, right? I mean, Ashley, I know from the marketing side, I mean, you guys are often kind of, how do we get in front of people, the right messaging. And so what have you been seeing in terms of like this concept of just like almost like, it's like micro conversations or targeting or
Well, it's interesting because one of my first questions was going to be, so it sounds like we're targeting like a fairly high level executive at a fairly high level corporation, right? And one thing I'm curious about is I'm wondering if any of these emails are getting fielded by like assistants. Like I'm wondering if the first eyes are, especially like I used to be an executive assistant at a PE firm. And like the higher you get, like the more support you have underneath you, right? So some of these executives like don't even own their inbox, right? Like they don't even have access to it. And your mention about getting like a high response rate on the bump is I'm wondering if, version 1 is going to the assistant and your assertiveness is causing the assistant to be like, hey, check this out. That's like a wild guess that might not be accurate, but I was thinking about that as you were talking about your.
I think you're 100% correct. I think that the person that I'm talking to isn't reading their own email, and the fact that I'm operating at such a different frequency and with such a different tone than what everything else is, that the EA gets confused.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know what this is. Like, can you help me? Like, how do I decide on this? Like, what is this? And then the exec looks at it and they go, oh, they have, they have global data. Yeah. Set this guy up. And like, that's exactly what I don't know that for a fact, but like, I have the exact same hunch.
Yeah.
I think that happens all too, right? I mean, I don't know, Ashley, the same thing psychologically, I think could probably apply to that kind of attitude when you're calling. Like, I think it was Benjamin B actually did a video where he was talking about how to catch gatekeepers off guard, like the account executives, or the admin. And And one of the things that he said was, when you call up like you are supposed to be already having a conversation with this person, and you just keep it very brief, like, John, I'm sorry, who are you? This is Paul. And like, you don't, like, you just keep it so vague and so like assuming that it gets you through. And I think the same thing can go for emails, because I get so much email, and one, I'm not even the decision maker. So that just tells you there, like, how many of these sequences are going out to just the wrong person completely, and how many wasted emails that is. And two, they're so long. They're like a freaking mile long, and even the replies are really long, and I don't even read the first one. So if I saw a reply that just said thoughts, I would take a second and be like, what was this about again? I mean, I know psychologically that's where my mind goes. So I love that, Ashley. Like, I think you're spot on that it's slipping through that filter because of the psychological manipulation of it in a way, which is, very smart.
Yeah. And, all these concepts are pretty new to me, but I think you guys are like landing on the exact points that are having, that are helping me win. One of the other concepts that Justin like really drilled in with me was the whole combo prospecting idea. And you can run this on a regular Sam Nelson Agoji sequence, sending, Beck Holland, Josh Braun emails too. Like, you can use the combo principle really in any context. And essentially what it is like, if I notice that the person's reading my email and they're not responding to me, I do what's in the book, it's called a triple. It's basically like call, leave a voicemail, send an email, go to their LinkedIn, all in the same minute. And that's how I got Google. They want to talk Q1, so I'm not like booked on the calendar yet, but I got a reply from Google. Like, in Google, they have a policy that they don't respond to vendors. And the guy that replied to me, like, he probably got 250 emails that day by the time I got to him. And he responded to me and said, let's talk Q1. And the way that I did it, though, is I was sending the email, reply bumping it. I noticed he opened it. I sent him a LinkedIn request. He didn't accept it, but he looked at my profile, and then I blew him up. I called him, left a voicemail, sent another email, sent him an in-mail, like just bing, 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 bing. All of a sudden he replies.
Yeah. This is kind of where I think some of the marketing kind of crosses over. When I see someone starting to check out the website, opens an email, just shows some engagement, what it serves us to just like hit it hard. Like, that's when marketing passes to a BDR, right? And that's when, I was going to ask you if you were using LinkedIn too, because one of the things that I'm wondering too, just thinking about the nature of that inbox being a little bit less theirs potentially, and also to an extent also their calendar, by the way, is like a little bit less owned by them. I feel like LinkedIn is not that way. I feel like LinkedIn is more theirs. Whether they're on it or not, I don't know, but it's not gated, right? Like, for most executives, their EAs are not managing their LinkedIn, where they are managing their calendar and their inbox. So I love that you're using that as another kind of triple whammy tactic, because if it is all possible that they haven't seen the first couple because of, ownership, then they might be likely to see the other one.
Yeah.
It's funny because you're operating at the strategic sales level, right? So you're going from executives and VPs, and I'm in the SMB space now. So I had to take my enterprise sales experience and going after VPs and executives and really curve that all back. And now I'm going after, a technical engineer or, an IT manager. But I do the combo prospecting and what I'm doing as well, for customers and for partner relationships. And it works almost every single time. So if I need to get like an update on an opportunity, I'm calling them, I'm leaving a very short voicemail. A lot of times I don't even leave my number. And then I send them an email and I ping them and I just say, left your voicemail. And I'm very, very short and to the point, like, hey, I need an update on this op. Like, is this a viable opportunity? Like, I'm very clear about what I need, but I also try to roll in language that's more human. You know, you can see my personality in it. And then I'm going on LinkedIn, and whether we're connected or not, I'm going back and I'm looking at their profile, or I'm pinging them, or I'm sending them a connection or whatever on there. And I would say about 90% of the time, I mean, it's crazy, 90% of the time I get an immediate response to my email or an immediate call back. Since I've been with Fortinet, probably within about 10 minutes. It's insane. Yeah. It works so well at all levels. And it's like, gosh, why haven't we been doing this for a while? And now we're getting outreach as a rep, and I'm like super excited because now I can put my entire account list and all my white space net new accounts that I'm prospecting into sequences that I can control. And I'm pumped because I'm going to do some of these just like you talked about, because it just works. It's just like everyone's so like inundated with long text and, you know, like, I mean, we talk about like, you know, selling the value and really drilling into the pain. And that I think works on discovery calls and whatnot. But to get someone's attention, sometimes that's not even necessary, you know, right out the gate. Like it's just getting their attention.
Patrick,
so
I'm curious, Patrick, if you can, I know you can't like give us all your trade secrets, but are you finding in some of those like initial calls you're doing, because I know everybody has kind of different ones, like Amy was saying, like Benjamin suggested, almost like being like ridiculously assertive, like, hey, it's me, Patrick, and they're like, who are you? And then you just kind of jump in, or do you throw do you have 27 seconds? And if I can't, you know, no, not a fan of that one.
I'll give you guys this. Look, anything that everybody else is doing, I'm a million miles away from it. I'm turning the other way. And it's not because it's bad. Like this stuff that the 27 seconds thing, everybody uses it because it works well. I just don't want to sound like that. I want to be the exact opposite of that. I'm jumping out of the bushes at you with a treasure map. That's the concept that I'm going for. Look, there's a pile of money. It's right over there. Let's me and you both go get it. I'm going to make money. You're going to make money. This is good. It's
that's so good.
I like that. But do you actually say that? I like that. Do you actually say that?
I mean, I don't actually say that, but that's the feel that I'm trying to go for. And I have such a hard time, like, it's like I get the concept, but I have such a hard time trying to explain it because it's like deference is the best word that I can think of. I'm trying to avoid being deferential because in the interaction, right? Like if I'm talking to a VP at JP Morgan Chase, that person is used to everybody kind of like kneeling down and being like really like kind of just pandering and like, oh, I'm sorry, kid, I don't want to bother you. And just like that feel, like I want to avoid that. So I'll give you guys this. This is my opener, and it's as far as I'll go. It's some of Justin's content. I'm sure if you asked him about it, he would tell you about it, but I don't want to like go through the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I get that.
But the first thing that I do when I call somebody is I find out what they're in charge of, and I ask them who's in charge of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if I'm talking to the chief risk officer on the phone of Western Union, I'm calling them up and saying, oh, hey, Jake, just curious, who's in charge of your overall risk strategy at Western Union? I'm talking to the chief risk officer. It's him. It's her. It's whoever. I mean, whatever they listed as their responsibilities on their LinkedIn, like I pull a phrase from something that they wrote that they're in charge of. And I say, who's in charge of that? Because it's like, I mean, it's like part of their identity. It's like asking what their name is.
Yeah.
Like 100% of the time.
You could also build on that too, because sometimes you'll find, and this is just to counter that, it works, but then sometimes that won't work because they'll be like, well, you should already know who is in charge of that if you're calling me. But I will find that sometimes turning it on its head and being like, hey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand you're in charge of, or you oversee blah. And that also communicates the same thing, which is like, I've done some research. I know you're the man I should be talking about. And that kind of instantly gets you that level of respect. And okay, like I'm going to listen to this person for a little bit. But the same thing goes to you because it kind of throws them off and it makes them feel a little important, they get to kind of like, oh, well, that would be me, and like, so from a psychological standpoint, it works. It's just occasionally you're going to get that executive that's going to be like, you should know this.
I've gotten hung up on plenty, like multiple times doing this. Like so the president of the retail bank at Capital One hung up on me, said, don't call this number again. He was upset. Capital One's on the calendar because I had 8 different people that I had like all these threads going at the same time. And I was using some visual concepts. Like I'm excited to share this Venn diagram that I built with you guys that Justin helped me with. But my point was, like, I wasn't single threaded on this one person. Basically he didn't like my phone call. So like I blacked him out on my spreadsheet and I just went everywhere else. Like I went above him, I went around him, I went to the left, I went to the right, I went down, I went everywhere but that guy. So yeah. And then I even will sometimes use the who's in charge thing as a pattern interrupt. Like if I have a thread going where I'm reply bumping and they're not answering, but they're opening all my emails, I'll start a new thread the next day and say, who's in charge of risk strategy? Because it's a very forward assertive approach. And it's basically like, what are you doing not answering me? Aren't you in charge of risk strategy? Like I have a thing here. Like you should be looking at this. Like did I miss something? And that's the style that I'm basically developing, and it's not for everybody. But I've been blown away with the success that I've had. Like it made me nervous to think about, like, I have to go after JP Morgan Chase and Capital One and Google. But that's basically how I've been able to get people.
I think this works really well too at the lower levels of selling to the SMB space, for instance, because one of the things that you can do for a pattern interrupt is memes or, anything like that, like something, a short video clip, or because the theory is that the pattern interrupt is just enough to make them sit back and go, And I mean, like Stephen Chase is great at that, right? Like he cracks me up. Like even the subject lines that he uses are just, they kind of just are in a very assumptive and kind of goofy. And like, I'll give you an example of this. I had a partner that I was trying to get an update on an op and nothing, right? Just crickets. So, the movie Spaceballs where they're scraping the desert with the comb, like looking for something,
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys see that? Like, they got the big like hair pick and they're scraping the desert, like they're combing the desert. Okay. So I sent him that meme and I was like, where's my update? Have you found anything yet? And I mean, immediately I got a response immediately. And then it was like, I warmed that relationship up too in the process because they got to see me as a human and, oh, I have a sense of humor. And, so I think when you're prospecting too, rolling all that in and those concepts, like you're talking about, Patrick, kind of like conveying like a little bit of dominance or a little assertiveness, like the same thing can be done with humor. And then maybe you're not inserting dominance or showing them like, hey, look, I can, like, I'm on your level. It just breaks down the barriers to this human connection as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's great.
I couldn't agree more, Amy, because I like to mix it up too. Because if it's all assertiveness all the time, like that's not a good look either. So I try to mix it up with humor quite a bit. Like one of the things that I'll do is on maybe the second reply bump that I'm going to send, or in the second thread that I'll start, not to feature dump at all. Like it's I totally avoid trying to even mention the fact that I work for a company. I only talk about like the pain and the solution. But if I'm having trouble getting through, I'll mention a differentiator, something that makes our product really, really different, just as a one line. Like one of the points that we have is our API has a sub 100 millisecond response time, which from an engineering perspective is like, the people that are in this industry, like they know what that means. Like there's 5 years worth of engineering and millions of dollars poured into the fact that we can get it under 100 milliseconds to actually give you a risk score. So I'll just say that as a one line, like, hey, our transaction risk API is a sub 100 millisecond response time, and then a GIF of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air making like a wow face.
Or like ludicrous speed.
Yeah, just anything, like something goofy, like I have a folder full of GIFs that I use for, like, just when I need a joke, I need something to be funny, I need to lighten it up a bit, I'll go to that.
So I've got a question kind of for everyone. Like, in a lot of the sales communities, I think we often hear about these approaches, which are like, don't bore people to death with long emails. Like, and I'm hearing it enough that I'm starting to wonder if it's almost like common sense, but like 90% of what I still get is terrible. And so are people lazy? Are people not putting the effort in? Are we like really on the cutting edge? Like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, what's going on here?
My theory is the stuff that we're talking about right now is we're on the bleeding edge. I mean, this is like really, really kind of out there stuff that I'm talking about doing, like sending a reply bump every day. Like, there's 600,000 SDRs in the United States. Probably 10 of them are doing what I'm doing. I mean, it's not common. Like, every single company out there is running a Sam Nelson Agoji sequence. The reason why is because it's effective. Like, I don't think the Agoji sequence is bad at all, but it's, there's a certain frequency to it. There's like, send the email on day 1, and then call on day 2, and then call on day 3, and then you wait a day, and then day 5 another email, and then you wait, and then the weekend goes by, and then another call, and it's this like 30-day thing. I'm getting my sequences done in 2 weeks. If 2 weeks goes by and I haven't gotten a response, I'm pivoting. I go to somebody else. I just swap them out for another one until I can get somebody to respond.
Patrick, are you using the clustering idea that Justin talks about, where you do like the wait between?
Yeah. I'll sometimes, if my thread ends, if I get to 2 or 3 reply bumps and nothing happened, like, I'll wait a couple of days and then start on another concept. But to be totally honest, Patrick, I haven't really gotten past the second thread. Like, I either get unsubscribed, or they answer me, or they'll answer me and say, no, call me this other time, or they're on the calendar. Like, it hasn't really come up that I've needed to go that deep into the sequence, which it sounds crazy as I'm saying it out loud to you guys, but like, yeah, the second round of reply bumps, they start to get it. Like, this dude's the Grim Reaper. He's not going away.
Ashley, you had a question there.
I was just going to say, I think it makes a lot of sense that in the same way that we develop our content specific to who we're talking to, that we would do that with our sequencing as well. Like, you're targeting super busy, super, I want to use the word affluent, but that's not the word that I want to use, but like super rich. I guess that's just another word for affluent. You're targeting a very specific person, and an effective strategy to target someone like that is disruption. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think part of what we're talking about too is, like, we have to be able to be flexible and agile enough to make effective strategies based on who we're talking to and what we're trying to sell all the time. And based on your very specific ICP here that we're talking about, there's no reason. Of course you're finding success. I think this is incredible. I mean, these people, once you know your person, right, you'll be able to know these people probably aren't getting a lot of humor in their day, right? They're like walking around in suits, and they've got like 5,000 people working for them, and they're working bankers' hours. Like, they're not getting gifts in the middle of their day. Like, this is an incredible strategy.
And they're probably like you're saying, Ashley, they're probably like, not that affluent and type A is always in the same column, but they're, they probably like somebody that gets to the point. Like, they're not like, I don't want to read your 10-page email. They probably love the fact that it's like 3 sentences. They're like, thank God. Like, there's probably no banking emails that are 3 sentences.
I feel like everybody's in this state right now, though, right? Like, even though you're saying, yeah, these high-level executives are living this life, right now, everybody is. I could see this working on almost anyone. Like, I know our CEO is working 20-hour days. You know, we're a 300-person company. I don't know 50-person companies that are working like that. They might not have an EA, but they also probably need someone to get to the point and some humor. So I'd say
Yeah.
this kind of concept would work on anyone right now.
I think it'll work on anybody. I think you can take the same exact strategy and run it across. I wouldn't necessarily, I don't know. It depends on what your average deal size is. Like, I don't know if I would put in the manual effort that I'm doing in like a list of mid-market accounts. I would probably try to automate a bit more so that I could have like a wider range of accounts that I'm going after. Cause like my account, I have 10 accounts in my list. It's not like I can just swap them out and go get somebody else. It's like they handed me this list and they said, get us in there. Like, you don't, that's it. Get us in. Like Shopify blacklisted me. I got completely stonewalled at Shopify. I got 5 different unsubscribes. I got a bunch of people to say no. And essentially like, I had to stop. I was like, I went to my manager and said, I'm going to burn the account if I keep doing this. Like,
So Shopify on notice.
Huh?
Tag, let's see if we're like connected with people from Shopify on LinkedIn and tag them.
Yeah.
No, because
yeah.
like somebody last night just subscribed from Shopify to 5 on Fridays LinkedIn account. I noticed it last night because I was checking her followers. So if you're watching, I think it was Danielle. Please reach out to Patrick and give him a chance.
Danielle, get in here.
I
Come
know,
on,
right?
Danielle.
I thought Francois might be able to help with the Canadian connection.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
Go ahead. I was gonna say, like, what's crazy about like this whole concept though is the fact that the more off the cuff you are, the more so when I look in my inbox, either work or LinkedIn, right? I mean, even in-mails are a million miles long still. And I'm like, there's no way. And I just delete them because I'm like, I just don't have the physical, literal time. And I mean, I think it was Lisa Palmer said it best because she used to be a C-level and she would have hundreds and hundreds of vendor emails every day just pouring into her inbox. And she'd also have to sift through them and meet with vendors, you know, because they'd be vetting products and solutions. And the one thing that she said is get to the point. Like, that was it. Just like get to the point, then build on the relationship and, you know, grow the human side of that transaction as well. So they're not just seeing you as a vendor, you know, hawking your wares. But the point behind it was figure out a way to get their attention and to get your point across as quickly and effectively as you can, because that ultimately is a value sell for what you're doing as a vendor, because you're not wasting their time. And I think that's, if more of us wrapped, and I also think we overthink sales and marketing too for that perspective. I think we overthink, is this email right? You know, we tweak like, you know, a 3-4 paragraph long email that someone's not even going to freaking read. Like, it's just, it's almost a waste of energy and time. Whereas if we could say what we're saying in 3 paragraphs and 3 short sentences, or a simple bump reply or a meme or, you know, whatever, does it get us unsubscribed? Maybe. But if it gets us attention and that turn converts, same thing goes for network. Like, use your network, like, you know, like pull on people and ask for doors to get opened. And one of the things that I've been doing at Fortinet, which has helped, is telling my partners, like, if you need a door open, let me know, and I'll see what I can do to knock on that door on your behalf and maybe get some attention for you for a decision maker that seems sticky. Like, we can, I think as an industry, we need to pull on that relational aspect of sales too. And that sounds like that's what they were doing before you started. I mean, that was their main process and philosophy, was like the networking side of sales. How do we use that in our prospecting?
Yeah. I'm so glad that you brought it up. I got IBM on the calendar, and I didn't send one email or make one phone call. It was an introduction. I found somebody that had previously spent time at IBM in sales, selling their fraud protection. So this person's doing the same kind of thing that I'm trying to do. And I messaged him to say, like, hey, I saw that you spent some time at IBM. Like, we do the same kind of thing. Like, could we chat? And it turned out he was looking for a job. And he sent me his stuff and said, like, could you give me an intro at your company? And I did. I connected the dots for him. Like, he didn't get hired. Like, it didn't work out. They needed somebody to be closer to where the office was in Amsterdam or whatever. It didn't work out, but I was able to, like, go back and forth, like, internally, and sent the guy a screenshot back and said, look, I tried, man. I couldn't do anything for you. And this is over WhatsApp now. I'm like texting this guy on WhatsApp, and he was like, dude, really appreciate it. Like, thanks for putting your neck out there. Let me introduce you to my friend at IBM on the calendar.
I got some chills there, Patrick.
I'm wondering, like, earlier, like Ashley was saying, I mean, I think a lot, like, in terms of, like, like, you're the opposite use case of who we have on here. Like, a lot of people are kind of going, we're not sure exactly who we're targeting. We're not 100% sure what the messaging is. Like, you shouldn't even be on
why I came here.
But that's fun.
No. But all jokes aside, I think, and like you said, there's 600 SDRs, and no disrespect to them. Like, a lot of them are new, and so I think they're just like, they love the spray. Well, I don't know if they love it, but they're doing the spray and pray. So it's not like hyper targeted. They probably don't have the confidence you have. And so, no, I mean, I think all jokes aside, this is good because people will watch it and get some feedback. And Patrick's like bugging you, like, you keep telling us about this Venn diagram, but
yeah, I got it. Can I grab
the goods?
yeah, this is why we're here, man. We want to see the Venn.
Okay, here.
This Venn diagram.
So these are some email spear examples. Like, this is literally the one that booked JP Morgan Chase. This Hey Josh one. It's that short. Here's the
And you know what I like about that too? I know you use the word assertive, which I think it is, but it's not aggressive. It's not aggressive. It's not pushy.
Yeah.
Because I do think that's a really important balance here, right?
Yeah. The concept that it's assertive, but you're absolutely right. There's a tap out in there. There's like,
yes.
Hey, if this makes any sense, can we talk? But it's also very assertive. It's like, hey, I have this thing that's like going to make me money, and I think it's going to make you money too. Like, can we talk about that?
Yeah. You in? Or are you not interested in making money? Because that's fine too.
Yeah. So
There's no
check
fluff
out
in there. There's zero fluff in there. Like, you're getting
No, and honestly, this was one of the in my first couple of weeks. Like, I think this was right after I'd finished all the training content. I started going after them, so I would have even tightened this up even more, to be totally honest. Like, of course, this depends on your time. Delete it. Is hopping on a call a good possibility? Yeah, it's okay. Or how's your calendar, if this makes any sense? Something like that. Like, that's the usual CTA that I go with. But I try to imagine, like, if I try to imagine that I get a $100 bonus every time I can take a word out of the email.
So did you come up with this Venn diagram?
Justin helped me with it. Yeah. But I mean, like, we had to figure out what's the concept. Like, what is the one thing that you guys do that normally takes 3 different vendors? Well, we have the name, address, phone data, and we also have the email and IP data, and we have it all linked together, and we issue a risk score, and that's usually 3 different people, which, I don't even know how exactly accurate this is. If some like fraud expert was to come in here and like really dissect, like, why did you put these 2 in the intersection? Like, they don't really do name, address, phone data, but Affirm and Klarna offer like point of sale lending. Like, when you go to buy something and they say like split it into 4 payments, it's basically like they have to run a credit check to do it. So that's why I kind of lumped them together with Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, because these guys are, they're the credit bureaus.
And do you find when you include this, you get like, you definitely get an open rate and you get something? Like, does this typically give you something?
This is actually magic. It's a secret weapon. And I use it in a variety of different cases. Like, okay, so Capital One, right? Like, it brings me to another point that I'm going to forget to mention, but I'm not a big fan of it. This kind of outreach anyway. Like, I don't like looking at what's your reply rate. I think open rate is actually more indicative because I ended up booking Capital One and they never responded to me. They actually emailed one of my VPs and said, "Who's Patrick Joyce? He's emailing all of our executives. Like, we can talk. Should I email him back?" And they said, "No, you don't have to email him back. We'll set you up with Kurt. Like, thanks very much. Good job, Patrick." But they never responded to me. I had this Venn diagram flying around the org chart. Right? Like, I had it and I used it in a bunch of different ways. Like, I would send it as a second reply bump. And then all of a sudden, like, they get this Venn and they're like, "What the hell is this?" And then I noticed like 2 days later, dude's going back and opening the same email and looking at the Venn diagram again. I haven't called him. I stopped emailing, my 2 days when he was in that period of time where I'm giving him a break and he's going back and checking out the Venn. So then I said, okay, I'm going to blow up all of his friends. So I go on LinkedIn and I look at everybody he's connected to and I start sending it as a first email. It was a reply bump before, but like now I'm sending it as a first step. And it's like, hey, what do you think the implications of this are? Insert Venn, send. Because I know you've heard of me. I know you guys have heard of me. Right. So like I do this like in this weird arc of like 8 different people. And I'm trying to like sketch the org chart in my head. And like sometimes even literally like write down like who reports to who, who's lateral to who, and like trying to like get a feel for that. And whoever my target is, just like really like close in on them. And then eventually they have to do something about it because they start to realize like this isn't going to go away. This is going to keep showing up in my inbox and blinking my voicemails and things. And if it's not relevant, they'll tell me. They'll tell me like, just stop calling, unsubscribe, like, no, thank you, please go away. And if they're not doing that, like I'm going to just hound them until.
Actually, I don't know what you're thinking, but I know like in a really technical space, I think something like this is really unique because I think often like the really technical stuff is like super hard to explain. And like we've all seen like visuals and I don't know, like 5% help and 95 confuse me.
Yeah, I agree. It also shows like a clear understanding that you know what your value props are, right? Which is again, just clarifying and getting to the point of why, especially in comparison to other businesses, why you are the winner, right? Why you're the one that they should be going with. Which I think exudes a level of confidence. And also people are visual. I think that there's absolutely something to integrating. This is why I feel so strongly about like marketing integration, right? With sales. Like we should be sending emails while you're calling so that we can hit kind of from both sides, but also so that we can give people some other, way to absorb the information. Some people like reading emails. Some people love visuals. Some people like all of it. So I love this. I think this is incredible.
Yeah. I think you're exactly on it. And the other concept that I'm going for is, I've heard a stat that like an image can help you. It's like, it's as much information as like 60,000 words of text. Like people say a picture's worth 1,000 words. It's really worth 60,000 words. And I'm not a linguistics person. I'm not a science person. Like, I don't know that number is true, but if it is, like, man, that's a lot of words compared to this over here, which is not 60,000 words. So I'm kind of like playing both sides there where I'm trying to give you as much information and give you the shortest amount of processing time, because that's the whole thing is like that long email that you have to read. It's mentally taxing. It's energy. Like that's like a resource that's very valuable for that person. Going back to like the affluence part, right? Like this person's time is worth a lot of money. And if their brain energy is worth a lot of money. And if they're going to spend it like trying to figure out if this is going to make them any money, like chances are they're just going to cut it. But if they can like in a quick second, like use the fact that there are logos here, and just the construct of a Venn diagram, you don't have to explain anything. Like your brain processes that in like milliseconds. So that's the concept that I'm trying to go for there.
If I were to make one suggestion, I would say like lean into design being a really powerful persuasion tool. and start to, talk to a designer about colors and start to really dig in. I mean, there are some really powerful, like red connotates this, blue connotates this, like start to organize this in a way that draws the eye specifically. This is where I think like design, and I don't pretend to know anything about design, but like people that are designers know design really well and know how to organize a visualization so that the point of what you're trying to drive gets across even more.
Yeah.
So I would say if you're going to keep using this, I would reach out to a designer and have them design it for you.
So what my next plan, now that I've gotten this to work, right? I got the meeting at Capital One, basically based on the fact that I had Venn diagrams flying around the org chart. I'm going to go to my marketing team and hand this to them and say, hey, I got a meeting with this thing. What do you think of that? And then that's where the design people will come in. I think I can borrow some ideas from that. But I also think it's important to make this look kind of homegrown. Like this, it wasn't a marketing document. Like I slapped it together myself, and that's like the overall vibe that I'm going for is like, I put this thing together. Like, is that cool? Like, do you guys?
For you. Yeah. No, I get that. I think there's some value there too, for sure.
But I agree with you. I think that there's probably some ideas that I can borrow from somebody that's really sharp with design. I just don't want it to look like it came from marketing,
Yes. I get that. No, I get that. I think there's a danger in something being overproduced for sure. Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I want to give this to marketing and then have marketing go and make marketing material and market with it. But when I'm trying to like snipe out a sales meeting and like end up on the calendar, like I almost want it to look a little bit rough around the edges,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
don't want
guys.
to keep you guys. Yeah.
I know we're close to the hour, and I know we lost 2 people already. That's their loss. But this has been super cool. And like I was saying, Patrick, I mean, you're on like the one end of the spectrum. Like we have some people that are still figuring out like who their ICP is, what their messaging is. But I mean, I think I learned more than you today.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share. Like I said, I've been working with Justin quite a bit. So I've learned a lot, and I was like, really happy to just jump on and update you guys and show you what all my new stuff is and see if, you can poke some holes in it or give me any pointers or like think of something. So yeah, it was just a super fun conversation.
I think the net of it is maybe we'll get you back into Shopify.
Hey,
Danielle.
Fantastic.
We're all going to connect with Danielle today. All right, man. Well, have a great long weekend, guys. Thanks for jumping on, and
Good work.
we'll see you on the flip side.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, of course.